This video is about these dome-shaped or dome-topped lock nuts. So if you have a different type of lock nut, this may not help you, but if you do have a similar lock nut key, or a lock nut, sorry, then what I went through, it might help you. And this is how they look, the damage done with the method I used to get them out. But I mean, if you've lost your lock nut key, the damage you do to the lock nuts that are stuck in there is quite irrelevant, isn't it? As long as you can get them out, as long as the damage you do getting them out gets them out, then it doesn't matter. They're just rubbish once you get them out. But my first approach was to buy another second-hand quality lock nut key and the nuts that come with it. So right, you get the four wheel nuts with the four for each tire, that's 20, and then you get the four lock nuts that go with it. I got another set of them, and I saw from the picture that the guy posted that it looked very similar to mine, so I thought, well, I'll give it a go. It might fit. But what I found out is even though it looked the same, it had 5 splines, and it looked like it would work. This is my new one, and when I got it and tried it, of course it wouldn't work. These are the old ones I took out, but this diameter is like 16 mil and that diameter is like 15 mil, so of course that won't allow it to go in. And they've done a great job, the security industry, in this, in making them not fit other, like, you know, there must be enough differences they make to make it quite unlikely that you're just going to go get another lock nut key and then fit the one you've got on your wheel. I was thinking about that, and you would think wreckers would have a bucket full of lock nut keys, and it may be that if they can't, with the cars that come in damaged, if they can't put together a used second-hand lock nut key with the lug nuts that go with it to sell second-hand, they probably just chuck it in a bin for metal recycling if it's not a complete set. But if you were lucky enough to find a record that had lock nut keys set aside in a bin, my uneducated guess is that maybe out of 30 lock nuts in that bin, you might be lucky enough to get one that fits your wheel. That's just my guess. There's enough diversity there to make it unlikely, and then it's also unlikely that you're going to find anyone that's got a bin of lock nuts that they're willing to let you sort through. And so after I tried getting another second-hand lock nut key, I did a bit of a panic purchase, and sorry, I got one of these sets off of eBay, and it was advertised as a lock nut removal key. And if I had really looked at the description properly, I wouldn't have purchased it. But I could see how a lot of other people would be like me and purchase it thinking it was the answer. But there's on my type of lug nut that I've been showing you, there's 5 splines. As you can see, five splines. The only 5 spline one here is this 5/8 one. See, it's got 5, but it's way small. It's way too small. And that's the only one that has 5 spline. So even though that eBay kit it seems quite good quality, but it was really irrelevant to helping me with undoing any lug nut that I have. So if you see that kit on eBay, just be careful. They do list all the spline amounts, and they list the measurement, like how they got 4564. That one came the closest, but it's like 3, 4, 5, 7 spline. Yeah, 6 spline. So that was a waste of money. Not so much from the seller and manufacturer, but my fault for not really looking at what I was getting. So I hope that might help some people not to make the same mistake. Now, the method I used to do this, so there's my new lock nut, because I've taken out all the old ones. And this will be a rough video, sorry, but I just want to help someone else realize that they could possibly do this. So what I did, I use this to protect my nut I'm working on. See, there's my lock nut. And I would move the wheel. I used a speed way of thinging up my wheel, just enough off so I can turn the wheel. And I would turn it over here for the best position to, and about 2 mil off the edge, I would use that one with a hammer to make my drill hole. And when you got that indent, you use your drill and drill, you know, like about 2 mil off the edge. And then I use this one, like it's about 2 mil by 3 or whatever that is. And then I would use this one. And it's like 70-80% patience and 20-30% effort. I can't stress that enough. If you go too hard, too fast, you'll just make a mess of it. So it's a lot of tap, 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 tap. And it sounds a bit crazy, you know. It reminded me of an old cartoon we watched as a kid, Woody the Woodpecker. But it takes real faith in cause and effect. You got to believe that what as you're tapping, say, I would have put that where that one is, move the wheel, and then I'm tapping counterclockwise, of course, like the saying, lefty loosey, righty tighty, and so I would put it where I could tap that easily. And you know, I might have just got lucky because someone didn't do up these lug nuts very tight, and my mag wheels may be easier to work on than the ones you have. Some people have really thick mag wheels where these domes would be a lot further in and maybe not allow you to do what I did. But the other thing I want to say is, yeah, you got to have patience. You got to believe in cause and effect, that every strike, every tap you're making is working against its bite or its tightness in there. But the other key thing that made the difference for me doing this job is I stopped, because I was starting to lose faith that it would ever work. And the other thing, well, I'll just finish what I'm saying there. I got that heat gun, and that's the thing that made the difference for me. So, you know, I had to be careful. That's plastic, so you don't want to heat that. But I put the heat in there, and what I found is the lock nut will heat up really hot, but this mass of alloy sucks up the heat. Like, I was holding it here, and I had that thought, oh, I don't want to warp the wheel. But how it actually was is that the mass of the alloy wheel sucks up the heat really fast, and the steel can't. It ends up getting really hot, really, really hot. So I have to get another. Just want to get. So So what's happening when you heat it up? That surface my finger's rubbing on, that your what do you call that? Anyway, that's where it's binding on the alloy wheel, right? That's your tapered edge. And yeah, it may well be that not all luck nuts have a tapered edge. But in this case, they got a tapered edge, and that's binding. That's what's making the grip, where that tapered edge is hitting the alloy wheel. When you heat it up, this is getting really hot. But the heat is rushing from that contact point into the alloy wheel. And heat makes things expand. So you get a very slight effect of the alloy wheel surface around that losing its bite on this because of that heat transfer going on. Yeah, that's the nearest I can explain it anyway. And I would stop with the heat gun. I was holding it about like that, waving back and forth, being careful not to burn my center cap. And I would feel with my hand, and I was amazed at how quickly the heat was just dissipating into this alloy. I mean, I could have the heat gun there for ages and then feel it, and it's not even hot, and then touch that and burn my finger. So that's how it was in reality. And that heat transfer going from the lock nut into the alloy wheel around the whole circumference of that tapered edge is what I think helps to create the loosened bond, making it possible to tap these out. As near as I can figure, because when I used the heat gun, that's when I started getting the breakthrough. And then when the first one let go, I thought, oh, this is great. I got a bit excited, and I started to get too rushy on the second one. Then I had to just no, slow down. You got to be really patient. Don't try to do it in a hurry. It took me at least 3 hours to do all four. It may have even been more like 4 hours because I'm a bit slow these days. But it's a thing where you really need to be slow and patient and tap, tap, tap away. So when you drill that hole, like I drill my hole, and then you get your wheel in a position where you can tap the easiest, of course, up and put it up top. I found at about 10 o'clock where you put it up top, then I can just tap and get that turn happening after so long. And as I say, I just used that one first. And when you grind these, you need that freshly ground surface so that it gets a purchase on your drill bit hole. And so, yeah, start with that one. So drill out the hole. I would pinhole drill 2.5 drill bit, then that one, and a lot of patience and belief in that cause and effect and the heat. And the other thing, I use the penetrate. I did it the night before, and I would stop and spray about 3 extra times while I was tapping, like before I heated up, after I heated up, with that penetrate spray, and just tapping that counterclockwise on the edge there. And yeah, I was amazed. I got all four off. And the other ideas I had, if you might have wheels that just won't work doing that, you might not be able to get a chisel in there or whatever. But the other idea that I had is if you had a pipe, like I thought to myself, if you had a pipe, a thick-walled pipe, and you were good at engineering, you could cut to fit those five lobes. Like that blue, what I've marked is actually too big, but my pipe was too big. That was the problem. If you had the inner diameter of your pipe would need to be the same diameter as that lower edge there, like that edge recess there. Your inner diameter of the pipe would have to pretty much match that, and then you could cut five things out to match your lobes, and then before you turn it, you'd have to put a collar on here so that they wouldn't flare out, so that you could then put it on and turn. That's one idea that I had, and the other idea was to, if I used an offset like this, and then I put it on my lock nut, like these lock nuts worked. These lock nut keys worked better. Lock nut, sorry. And you could possibly weld that, right? You got the offset, and you could weld around that edge. But the other thing I want to say with regard to welding is that that's only like about 3 mil tops on the edge, and then it's hollow. I've only experienced arc welding in my youth. I used to do a bit of arc welding, and I know there's MIG welding, there's acetylene, and all I wanted to say about that is you have to keep in mind that that small amount of metal on the end could easily just blob off to the side under heat, because it's only about 3 mil of metal on the end. That's why I thought if you have something like that, then you can weld around the side probably more successfully. Or if you welded something like that, maybe MIG welders or certain welders can do that, but I don't have enough experience to comment about that. But when I went to the garage, the other thing I did, I ordered the lock nut set. That didn't work, but I ended up using that new lock nut set to replace the ones I took out. And then I ordered the eBay set, which was a waste of time, as I said. And the other thing that I did do was go to a local tire garage, and I asked the fella, like a tire selling place, and I asked the fella, and he said, in cases like that, they usually refer the customer to this mechanic, and they gave me the business card, and they said what they usually do is they will weld something on the end so that they can turn them out, or drill out the whole stud, and it wrecks the wheel. And he said even when they weld onto the end of the lock nut, it usually damages the wheel. And so I wasn't very impressed with that. And you can imagine how much a mechanic or an engineer would charge you to do that. And I asked him, I said, do you have a tool to take them out? Because you would think at a tire changing place that to save looking through a car for a lock nut, say a car comes in to get wheel changes or brakes done, quite often they must have to search the whole car for the lock nut, or call the customer for the lock nut key, because they need the key to undo the lock nut. And so I would imagine a lot of these shops have kits that actually fit a multiple variety of lock nuts, I would think, because if there was such a tool, it would save them so much money searching through the car, calling the customer for the lock nut key. But anyway, I hope that helped. I just wanted to share because it's like a bomb waiting to go off if you don't have that lock nut key. And it was our son-in-law's car we had borrowed, and my wife and I lost the lock nut key. And we could just imagine what would happen the moment there's a flatty, or you go to get the tires changed. It would just be terrible. So I'm thankful they came off in my situation, and I hope that anything I've shared might help anyone else out there going through the same thing. I never looked on YouTube how to get them out, so this is just what I've gone through without checking YouTube. But I do often reference YouTube, and so many people out there have helped me with other jobs, so I just wanted to share this, hoping that it can help someone else. So that's all for now. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Bye.